All right, should be recording. Let's see. Okay, you should be able to see my screen now. And now let's go to the lab. Exam 3, lab 11. There we go. Is this the one you had questions on, the Ecological Footprints lab, or the one that's actually due tonight? From
the lab 11, the ecological footprint.
Perfect. All right, let's take a look here.
It's still in a Google Word, and I still have to click Google the open with Google Doc.
Mm-hmm. Just like I just.
Yeah, and it erased all my stuff again.
Oh my goodness. Well, I guess that's the first thing to try to figure out why that's happening. Man. Well, the first thing I would say, I don't know why it's doing that, but usually what happens when you do anything on Google Docs, it automatically saves it.
Yeah.
So what might be happening is that every time you're going back, like the way I just did, and like you said, there was that little pop-up, and then you had to open with Google Docs. There's a slight possibility that maybe it's still being saved to your Google Drive. And do you know how to get to your Google Drive?
I think so.
Okay. Obviously, it's not going to show up on my end, but for example, I'm going to just go to Google Drive. So you might go and do the same thing and see what yours looks like. You know, again, mine's, well, yeah, see, mine did save just because I just now opened it. So hopefully the version, you know, one of those versions is there, but obviously I can't guarantee that. But so that's the first thing to consider. Yeah, and other than that, I mean, that's the best way I think for you to check on it on your end. And on my end, I'll try to figure out why it's doing this, because as far as I know, I have not done anything differently with this lab versus any of the other labs. So I'm not sure why it's doing that.
Yeah. I've also taken pictures of my answers, and just in case, if it deletes everything again before tomorrow, well, by tomorrow, would you let me send it in there, send it to you via Google email, and have you grade it?
Yes, that's definitely gonna. Yeah, that would definitely be fine, because it's obviously that's not your fault any of this is happening. So we'll just, whatever works will work.
Okay.
So I'm glad you told me that. And hopefully, I mean, hopefully somebody else watches this video, and if they have any insight, maybe they could hopefully email me, and I could have a follow up. But yeah, as of right now, I have no idea why it's doing that. But yeah, we'll just work any way around it. Now, before I get to that other question that I think I remember you had, I wanted to address something else from the other student. So they had questions about this this whole idea of ecological footprint. Now, obviously, the first thing you should do is watch this video that I embedded on there. I think it's a great video that describes it. But really quickly, I will kind of describe it in my own words. And this isn't the most accurate way of describing it, but it's a way that's easy to understand and hopefully easy to remember. So in a sense, you can think of your ecological footprint as basically how much space you need just to live, right? So think about like all the trees used to build your house, and all the farmland used to produce your food, and all the landfill area needed to take care of your trash, right? So all the stuff that you require to be alive, that is what your ecological footprint essentially is. So just think about the area that you would need to stay alive. And again, obviously that's going to be more than, I think a lot of people, when they think of that, they think of just their house, right? They'll go, how big is my house? This is the area I need. But again, I want to be very clear. It's not just that area that you live in or on. It's everything needed for all the resources, right? All the things you buy, all the food you eat, all the the water you drink, all of that is accounted for. So that being said, when we look at this question right here, question 1, Do you think your ecological footprint, well, basically, how do you think yours compares to the average person in the world, right? So do you think um, that basically, do you think you use more resources than other people? In which case, you would have a larger footprint. Do you think you use fewer resources? In which case, you would have a smaller footprint. Or do you think you use about the same? In which case, obviously, your footprint would be about the same. I will say this, and I don't remember if this is in the video or not that I posted, but one thing that you should know about the ecological footprints, and you can see right here for question 1 and 2, they're nearly the same, except for question 1, we're considering you versus the world average. Question 2, we're considering you versus the US average. And one thing you need to know is that the average US citizen has a larger footprint than the average citizen of the world. And it's mostly just because, we're a much wealthier nation than most other nations on Earth. And you might not think of it, but the fact that you have a roof over your head is a lot more than so many people have on Earth. So that's just something to consider. Question 3, and it's basically we're still asking the same question just in a different way. So we're still basically saying, hey, how many resources do you think you use compared to everyone else, right? We're asking the same question. We're just asking it different ways. In this case, for question 3, we're saying, well, how many Earths? Well, that's a typo there. How many Earths do you think we would need, right? So in other words, if you think you need more than one Earth, that means if everyone lived like you do, that means we would need more than one Earth to provide everybody with enough resources. So anyway, that's how those first basic questions go. And like I said, that was directed towards the other student who emailed me some questions, and I hope that answers his questions, but he's not here to follow up on. But as far as that is concerned, O'Brien, did you have any questions about that stuff?
No.
Okay. Did you think you had questions with the tables? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I didn't know if I was doing it right.
Okay. Both tables or just one of them?
Both.
All right. So let's look at this. The first thing we're going to look at is the ecological footprints of you compared to the ecological footprint of the average U.S. citizen, and compare that to the ecological footprint of the average citizen of India. And I just randomly chose that country. And then finally, we'll look at the average person on Earth. So in a sense, other than the India part, essentially what you're doing here is testing your hypotheses, right? Because at the very beginning, you said, you think your ecological footprint is larger, smaller, or the same as the world average, U.S. average, so on and so forth. So essentially, this is the data that you're using to see if your hypothesis is correct. So for your numbers, this is the information that you got when you ran the online calculator. Do you happen to know your numbers off the top of the bat or off the top of your head?
No.
That's all right. I'll just make something up. Let's say ecological footprint. Let's say, I don't know, 2.1 GHA. And remember, the average, I think, that I gave, well, we won't have to guess. We'll find out. Ecological footprint. So we're still looking at footprint on this next table, except now it's not going to be how big of a footprint it is as far as basically acreage. It's GHA, but just another way of looking at land size. But instead of looking at that, on this second part, you're gonna answer how many Earths do you need. A very common answer I see is 3, so I'll just put down 3. So let's assume, Brian, that that's your numbers. And again, that's the information that you are going to get from the calculator. And that is also information that you would put right here if one of these questions asks you. Yeah, right here. How many Earths would we need? Look at all these typos I need to fix. Anyway, how many Earths would we need, right? So whatever you put on question 10, that would be the information you would put in the table. Same with, what's the other one? What about the GHA? Here it is. Question 12. What is your GHA? Basically, how much land is needed to support you. So those numbers are what you would put right here. Now, the U.S. average in 2017, like it says right here, it's going to come from this website. Now, O'Brien, when you asked me about this yesterday morning and I clicked on it, it wasn't working. So let's keep our fingers crossed and see if it works now. Yep. All right. 2017. That biocapacity. So we don't need that number. Look up here. Ecological footprint. Here we go. So in 2017, the average U.S. citizen's ecological footprint was 8.04. So that is what you would put right here. 8.04.
For per person, right?
Right. That's like the average U.S. citizen.
Okay, I may have done that wrong because I had put the GHA as a whole, and I put for US average 2,607 million.
Yes. Okay. You're not the only student who's done that either. So don't feel bad. I'm glad you asked, and I'm glad we're having this meeting. Um, so yeah, what you need is this number. Oops, come on. This number right here from this website, which is this right here. Same thing for this. We're gonna look at, what do we say, the world, right? So I mean, I gave you a link, but you could also do it this way. The world average, 2017 was 2.77. I think we also said India. Yep. And again, I gave you a link, but you could also do it this way. So here, India's was 1.19. So that's where you're going to get the information to fill this stuff out, right? The ecological footprint of the average citizen of the U.S., average citizen of India, and the world average. And then, same concept, but slightly different numbers. We're going to look at the number of Earths. If I remember correctly, that's also on the same website. I mean, yes, I gave you links, but again, on the same website, number of Earths right here. We'll select that. Ecological footprint, India was 0.75. World is in 2017. Oh, that's 2010. I'm not going to be too picky on the years, but the most recent data we have, whoops, that's Sudan. Hold on. That explains that. World. Did we do world yet? 1.73 for the world. Anyway, that's how you do it. India, US, that's where you're going to find that information. And that is what's going to go in this part of the table. So, yeah, I'm glad you asked. And it sounds like you weren't completely off. You were getting information from the correct website. And you were also getting pertinent information. You know, that information was relevant. But the only reason we can't use that one is because, you know, that's not what your number is, right? Your number can't really be properly compared to the whole U.S. total, like that number that you mentioned. So, yeah, that's where you're going to get that information. Does that make sense now?
Yeah, and for the ecological footprint for number of Earths needed, all we really need to do is click on ecological footprint number of Earths on the tab, the open data, right?
Yeah, right down here. See, by default, the first one is this little thing right here, which is the first one that we used, GHA per person. It looks like the one that you accidentally used was the second one, which
yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, and that's all right. Again, relevant information. But then, yeah, so for the world, the number of worlds needed, it would be this third option here. And just out of curiosity and to give you another example, I'm going to look at Greece since half my family is from Greece. So, yeah, there would be, why is it, whoops, excuse me. There we go. We would need what? For the average Greek, you would need 2.58 Earths. So there you go. So that's that table. The other table's slightly trickier, but not much. It just requires a little bit more input and also requires you to do a little bit of math. But let's take a look here. Some of it's already given to you, right? So Australia, New Zealand was already there. I already put that in for you as an example. The world, again, we've got a website to use right here. So world, here we go. We are looking at, excuse me, what do we need? Ecological footprint in GHA, right? So the amount of land needed in 2017. And that is, for the world, was 2.77, right? So that's what, whoops, excuse me. Come on. There we go. Yeah, so for, well, let me just do the other examples since they're already up there. Zimbabwe, right? So if I were to look up Zimbabwe, as I already have, because the data's on there. Zimbabwe. I can see right here that the ecological footprint in 2017 was 1.03. And that is the information that is already in there, right? So that is how much land is needed to support the average citizen of Zimbabwe. Then, from the same chart, we can see what their biocapacity is. Basically, like how much land is available per, productive land is available per citizen of Zimbabwe. And you can see here on the same table that that answer is 0.48. So that is where, good grief, I'm sorry for all this back and forth. That is where this number came from, 0.48. So what this means, well, first we'll just do the math, right? So then if you were to subtract, you take how much land is available, which is 0.48, minus how much land is needed per citizen, which is 1.03, and that's where you get this number. So this number on the right, the difference is not going to come from the website. It's going to come from a calculation, which is why it says right here, enter your calculations here. And just to make sure you understand it, instead of just, not just you, but anybody watching this video, just to make sure that is understood, what this number means. If this number is negative, that means that country is using more than it can produce, right? So it's basically just taking away more resources than it is producing, and that's not a good thing. And the same thing will happen when you look up the world data, when you look up the data for the United States, and then of course your data that like actually you already have this information, the ecological footprints and GHA. Sorry. Oh, I'm so glad we're having this discussion because there needs to be one more clarification I need to make. So yes, this is going to come from the online calculator. This is the same information that you're going to have right here. Again, I said hypothetically 2.1. This number, now that I'm looking at it, is going to be the same as this number, right? Because you are a citizen of the United States of America. So your biocapacity is actually going to be, that's the same as, here, let me even write this down. Enter USA data here. So the same information that's going to be a block above it. Because, again, you are a citizen of the U.S., so that is the biocapacity of where you live. So does all that make sense?
Yes. So to subtract it, do we? Okay, which GHA do we subtract? Like, do we do biocapacity GHA subtract ecological footprint GHA, or
yes, yeah. And for anybody watching the video, and for you too, really, if you forget, the best way to tell is that's why I gave you an example, because it's clearly, if you take 0.48 and subtract 1.03, that's going to give you a negative number, right? If you were to do it the other way, where it was 1.03 and you subtract 0.48 from it, you wouldn't get a negative number. So yeah, you're going to take your biocapacity, this number right here, GHA, minus the ecological footprint to get this number. And again, if you forget that, then you can always look at this example as a reminder.
So basically, it's right to left.
Yeah. That is correct. Yeah, and that's it. As far as the questions that I've seen on the emails and the questions I've gotten from you, I think that clears everything up. Everything else is pretty straightforward, I think. So, did you have any other questions?
I don't think so. The table 1 and 2 was really the two major things because it was like confusing me the way the question was phrased.
Okay. Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad we cleared it up. All right. Well, then I guess I'll let you go. And if anybody watching this video still has questions, make sure you contact me. And I can try to explain things via email, or maybe we can just have another separate meeting and I can make another video. And the more the merrier. So you guys have a good day, O'Brien, and anybody else who's watching this.
All right.